map and probably have problems at the minute. As we know, this Cloud9 is not the one that we saw with the highest entry rating at SI. They've kind of fallen very far from that top of the hill where they once sat in APAC, and right now are struggling at the bottom of the table to, you know, maintain that. I think it's like 1-point-something% chance they've got according to Hapstats of them making it into the major. It's a bit of a battle.
The problem, one of the big problems for Cloud9 at the minute is lack of consistency within the games. So they're able to come out and, for example, have a really good start, and then it just completely tails off after the second half. It's that switch of sides. They just, I don't know, they just don't seem to be changing up their mentality. I don't know what it is, but one way or another, they are letting teams back into games that should be won like time after time. And we've got our bans coming in. Jackal and Nomad are the two attackers that are gone. A nice little combination, really. I think it's going to give us quite a free game because the Roamers are going to have a bit of a field day there. There's no Jackal to chase them down, no Nomad to close off those staircases. So expect to see some rotations, even after top floor control is taken by attackers potentially here. And the defenders should have a fairly reasonable opportunity here to be aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these bans, they just scream at me, this should be a consulate map, because these are the bans that you'd normally see there, even down to the Mozzie being taken away. So a different set of bans compared to what you're used to seeing on Coastline. Admittedly, haven't seen tons of Coastline lately, so don't have a whole ton to go off, but at least historically, I can't remember a time I've ever seen these four being stacked up. Let's see, though, how the map goes. As mentioned, I think for Cloud9, you could go to any map and be asking questions of how they're going to deliver here. They did play T1 just a few days ago. No doubt have a good idea to what went wrong on that map and what led to their eventual defeat. So hopefully here I've got some fresh ideas to bring into Blue Bar and Sunrise in round number 1. Maestro, Alibi, Wamai, Malusi and Smoke being their choices for this round. And on the attack, you often see quite a flexible lineup. This Nook really starting to make quite an appearance here in APAC North.
Certainly is, creeping her way in, quite literally, in most cases. Anybody who's maybe not too familiar with the operator Nook, she's basically got what we call a Hell Presence Reduction device, I think is the full title.
It's a very fancy name for I go invisible to cameras.
Goes invisible to cameras, removes the visual signature from any cameras. If Nook runs whilst doing so, then you do get a little weird glitch on the screen, which an eagle-eyed defender may be able to spot out and say that a Nook is approaching, but if you keep your movements nice and steady, then she will not show up. Also very, very quiet footfall as well, so one of those operators that can certainly sneak up on you. It leaves not only Kavera making me jump out of my skin sometimes, Nook can now do the same as well.
I'm just looking through the bans again and thinking about it. I know we spoke quite a lot about the Valkyrie already, but a map like this, it reminds me of Consulate in that way that there is a lot of potential aggression outside the map. You don't really get tons of it on Coastline, to be honest. More, you might see the occasional cheeky spawn peek. I think back to a Rogue versus Na'Vi game in EUL, for example, and how scrappy that turned out at points. But it should at least restrict the aggression that come out of the defensive side. So for Cloud9, nothing too chaotic, and their lineup, I think, does back towards that. Generally quite a defensive setup outside of maybe Static on the Malusi and Harper on the Alibi. Alibi, always a fascinating pick. We have this conversation every time we see a pick as to why you would take the Alibi over the Frost. And the resounding response from pros generally is just preference. They both have a shield. They both have a decent primary. The Alibi a little bit quicker than the Frost, but then she also has the excellent secondary, plus the fact that those Frost mats can be an absolute nightmare. Feels for the side of T1, this push inside of service is going to be the play. They've got two currently looking to set inside there. 2 kills coming out. One of them, I believe, to finish off onto the down but not out player of Neilio, coming from the secondary from Harper, make it into a third in the round for Cloud9 before finally there is a response from T1.
And it was certainly needed. Things were slipping away from them inside of the first round there. Yeti locked inside of the bathroom for the time being on the knock, looking to see if he can catch anybody on a rotation or any sort of movement around the map. Out go the nades, make sure there's nobody in behind that reception desk. He will just wait for the Banshee to open, which it now does, and allows him to shoot it out. So just clearing utility as he goes. But you can see here from his movements, I think, not too sure exactly what he's facing up to, what he's coming up against. He's going to take out those Prismas as he goes, but just the way he moved into that corner, then a quick flick towards the corner of the room. The prone Shio will get Yeti, and this is, as I was saying, Des, just unaware of what he was going into there. Lack of information at the minute for T1.
Yeah, very much caught out in that spot. And let's not forget those first 3 kills in the round that all went the way of Cloud9, all within 60 seconds. Very early aggression, not focused around the site. It was more about this kind of aggressive push out towards meeting T1 on the entry into the building, which I think is going to work well for Cloud9. Obviously, it has in round number 1. Another kill coming out with the Bailiff, by the way. Okay. Second in the round. I believe the first one was onto the down but not out player, but that one there, definitely confirmed.
They all shoot bullets. It's just that some are a little bit more effective than others. The Bailiff, they're able to open the ceiling above him. Of course, it can open up soft surfaces quite nicely and just give that angle for that final shot to come in. Now, Kitchen Service will be our second round. I think the absolute primary focus for T1 here needs to be keeping themselves alive a little bit later into the round. It was a good start from Cloud9 there, all kicked off with an MV Taylor kill onto 11, and it just really catapulted them into the round. And as you say, a few more bodies fell very quickly after that, and it always felt like it was going to be a Cloud9 round. We're going to have the Maru pick there, just switched out for the Iana, so a much more commonplace pick. I wouldn't have said the Amaru was drastically wild here on Coastline. We do see it picked up occasionally. It's a good way of getting into that top floor quite quickly, starting that top floor clearance, which is going to be imperative for the attackers here.
Yeah, and I think thinking back on it, for Cloud9, the way that I'm looking at their gameplay right now is very reminiscent of what we saw from Cyclops. And Cyclops, for those that weren't really around much last year, they were one of the Japanese teams that really struggled. Had good players, just lacked the structure and couldn't seem to pick up the results they needed because they were slow and a bit lethargic. What I'm seeing from Cloud9 here really reminds me of their first game of 2021. I believe it was against Fav or Fnatic. I forget which of the two teams it was. But they came out on the defensive half of Coastline and were ridiculously aggressive. And that was new. We'd never really seen that coming out from the side of Cyclops. And for Cloud9 here, I'm getting the same sort of vibes, at least from round number 1, where it's a, we want to be aggressive. We want to get out in the map. You know, clearly site play is not working for us. Let's just go back to that really raw APAC aggression, something that we've seen work for so many other teams, to help find our mojo back. Get confident on the gunning, and the rest could follow up around it. The big challenge in this game is that you have a player called 11 on the other side. I know he's just found the first kill, but we can't ignore him. The man has dragged T1 through quite a few games this season, handing them their first win in 2021, let's not forget, as an organisation. And in this game, at least, sure, it's only one kill, but we all know what that can cascade into, Ace.
At the minute, Shiol just trying to hold off this T1 push into Sunrise, and will be successful for the time being. The mute jammer there that we see at the bottom of the wall just doing some great work to keep him safe inside of that room for the time being. It looks like T1 might just actually dip away from this fight. In comes another drone, very quickly taken out, but elsewhere in the map, Neilio manages to find himself a kill onto MV Taylor, but Shiol's job continues, and he continues to do it well. Bailing away now, as obviously the landscape has switched a little bit after that second kill came in for T1. That's going to allow them now to get access inside, but they're not aware of the man creeping around behind them in blue bar, but great protection there as shots come in from Harper to keep Crazy Boy alive for the time being. He's going to have to dip away and take a long angle with that Vector. Looks to take the fight, will do some damage, but not enough. Now then, Crazy Boy, he's managed to get himself safe for the time being, but there's going to be a lot of work here for T1. They need to get that kill onto Harper, and then they can collect the man.
Only chance down as well. C4 coming out from Harper to complete the kill onto Crazy Boy. So a 2 versus 3, at least temporarily, for the side of Cloud9. Only-chan back on his feet, down to 1 shot, as is Neilio. So those two need to be very careful as we step into the dying seconds. A bit of utility still remaining. A grenade for Neilio now being thrown out. Replica finding only chance. And now it's a 3 versus 2 with 50 seconds to play. You're feeling good if you're T1 here, given the numbers that you've got. And Shire whiffs an absolute sitter. Diffuser finally gets dropped down and knows that there is still one more man lurking out in the hallway. Don't think he's seen him just yet. Manages to creep himself away quite safely. 11 missing him by just a couple of pixels as well. That could be the difference maker. 11, Crouch walking around finds 1. Shiles looking completely the wrong way. And 11 does what 11 does best. A 3K in the round to get T1 over the finish line and take round number 2.
Good round for T1, I thought. It was difficult for them. They were taking a lot of damage all around the map, but what I liked from them there was persistence. They didn't back away from those fights. They weren't afraid of them. They kept pushing, they kept probing, they stayed patient, and they waited for their opportunities, which presented presented themselves and they took them. So they level things up 1 apiece on the scoreboard, and that's great for them really, because the last thing they wanted to do was to find themselves behind Cloud9. The thing is, for a side like T1, as we've said over and over, this is a team that is growing, it is developing, it is building itself within this region. There is work to be done there, and they are fully aware of that. But they have got a real opportunity today, Des, to take down one of the huge names of APAC North in Cloud9. Cloud9 right now just feel like they're, not necessarily in this game, but overall, just feel like they're there for the taking. Just feel like there's an opportunity always to put points on the board when you're playing against them. And T1, it would be a massive result for them to come in and take this.
That's just it, right? You're staring against the ex-wounded giant, essentially, of the region, where Cloud9 last year beat everyone, apart from maybe Giants earlier on in the year, but eventually became the greats of APAC North. They were the team that everyone looked up to and was screaming the praises of players like Envy and Shyle as a duo. Nova stepped up massive in stage 1 for them off this year, so obviously hope to see him return at some point as well. They have struggled to find that form, but it's like a pit of piranhas now hanging around a wounded animal. They want that meat. They want to tear into the flesh of Cloud9 and take those critical points away from them. And I think for both of these teams now, where they currently sit, as you can see in the top right, 8th and 7th place, that's the bottom 2 places in APAC North. Both probably aren't too hopeful of getting themselves into the major, but if they can win in the last couple of play days, as Hab said, there is a very slight chance the stars could align. They could do just fine.
No real effort towards top floor last time around from T1. They pretty much let that go and just went for the horizontal push in through Sunrise. This time, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more pressure. We've got Neilio with Sledge, so there is, you know, every opportunity to get in there and open those vertical angles. We saw Shyle at the end there, able to still play by the storage and the B-bomb, and it just made a bit of a problem for them. But I tell you what, there's not much of a problem coming in from Envy Taylor this round. Des Crazy Boy steps straight inside of Office and takes him down. Shyle moving his position out of Sunrise, looks to make the challenge into Blue Bar and stops that early aggression. In comes the fight, and that's one that he should never be winning there with the amount of damage that he's just tanked, but he manages to find a headshot onto Replica and put him down, and that's a big start for Cloud9 in round 3.
Coastline just feels more and more as the days go by them. You saw his arm, there was the shot onto Shyle that you were looking for. I was going to say, Coastline feels more and more like a swing or be swung map, because every single kill you have seen in this round is someone getting aggressive onto someone else, being the one to be proactive and make the movements. It was 11 onto Blue Window, sorry, not 11, sorry. Shyle onto Blue Window to find the first kill. The trade that came back onto him was the man stepping back through Blue Bar. That aggression really pays off, and for Cloud9, it's just trying to slow T1 down. We're into that 3 versus 3. I think you'll be relatively happy. The ace being down isn't ideal, but you're also not going to lose any sleep over it. The big one you did want to keep on side was Neilio on the Sledge to get above and start doing some renovation works inside of Coastline. At this point, there is zero focus on the top floor, though. They're all coming across from Sunrise, it feels, unless they now look to change that out and make some moves. I'm concerned that it's going to be, again, quite a one-dimensional affair.
As you say, it's completely free right now for Neilio to go in up above and just start working on those defenders. And even if he doesn't get a kill, the important thing there is, and I think it's maybe a bit of a mistake in foregoing it, is that it stops the defenders playing where they want to.
Yeah.
Open up the holes above them, just run in and whack the floor a couple of times in those prime spots, and just force the defenders to play a different angle. Don't allow them to play where they're comfortable. You've got all 3 pushing from a single door here, Des. This is just asking for trouble.
And now the drones are coming in to really help illustrate that they're all coming from this one direction. So on their side, surely a C4, not a bad shout, but just shy of the right line of sight onto the player playing just outside of the doorway. One now moving up towards kitchen window, so they have got 2 angles being set up. But you're seeing the issue here, all these early fights mean limited amounts to be able to go and get rid of the utility. In they walk though, all 3 marching in through kitchen, finding one. Can they find a second? One going down, one through the rotate though. Cloud9 just caught unawares here, despite the full knowledge of what the game plan was. A 1 versus 1 here for Harper. Can he bring it out big for the team? One's rotated back through service, should be able to finish off the down man, but with zero knowledge of where he is, this is going to be a bit of a war. Will he use him as bait here? I thought he was going to for a second. He's inside a bathroom. Harper, zero clue of that fact, is waiting for the man to step out. May try and go for the defuse here as well as Neilio starts stepping up, looking for the rotate down to 2 seconds. Is he going to stick it? Steps out, but Neilio wins the 1, and T1 take round 3.
Great play from Neilio there. Not too eager was the the important fact. He was happy to wait. He had his count going on. He knew exactly how many noises, how many sound cues there had been from that disable attempt, so he knew exactly what he was looking at. The beauty of it was, where the diffuser had been planted, you've got a counter on the other side of it. And so it meant that he could only be challenged from one direction. It made life easier for the sledge. All he had to do was watch that one side of the bomb, and that's realistically the only place that the challenge was going to come from. So it was a nice, easy pickup for him to finish it off. But what I like is that he dropped himself back into bathroom, and then you could see his thought process. I could potentially move through the rotate here. I could, keep myself unpredictable, and it was just really nicely played in that 1 versus 1 for him. So that's going to be another round for T1. It's going to force Cloud9 away from kitchen and service after 2 unsuccessful attempts there. They are going to go back to Blue Bar and Sunrise. So Cloud9 at the minute not really too keen on playing that top floor. They're looking to keep themselves downstairs. Now, I'm keen to see again if T1 take the opportunity to get themselves in upstairs and start using a bit of that verticality. It's the one thing that's really missing at the minute. I know that they've put 2 rounds on the board, but they've both come down to tight end-of-round situations. I'd just like to see them make the defenders a little less comfortable inside a site. What
Baffles me as well is the fact that they, in most of these rounds, have brought along 2 Claymores. It's always been Replica and 11. In this round, it's exactly the same story, yet in one of their prior rounds, they were both still in back pocket. On a map like this, when the Nomad's banned away, and Cloud9 want to get aggressive, they want to get a little bit cheeky. It can't hurt to get that vertical control, like you mentioned, get a Claymore down on one of the stairways, whatever you need to, just to stop them roaming up onto you, and your sledge can do absolute work from above. So I do want to see more of that kind of team play being used there. Those vertical angles, as you say, do need to come into it here. Although reasonably, if Cloud9 can't win those 2v2, those 3v3 situations, why change anything on the side of T1?
Absolutely. Yeti bringing along the knock once again. Not got himself inside of the map just yet. Still on the drones, still on gathering that information, looking to push in potentially from service. It's exactly the same as what we saw last time from T1, and that's a little bit of a concern because both of the kitchen attacks were the same as well. So be careful not to leave yourself too predictable, because you're going to find yourself coming up to strong opposition. They have somebody playing inside a service, given that last time that's where the T1 push came from, and it looks like it will be the same again. As the drone goes in, need to find that man, which they will do. So that's the Malusi spotted out at least. Static having to just relocate, aware of the potential for pressure coming in from main door. But what that is going to do is allow T1 access into service entrance, but they need to be watchful for the potential run out. I
mean, look at how aggressive Cloud9 are being. They've got 2 of them pushing up towards front door, holding lobby side here. Nilio being contested. Yeti's managed to push his way in quite aggressively, and there's the opening kill you're looking for. Static falling down, losing out the Malusi. Not the end of the world. The gadgets will already have been deployed at this point, but 4 rounds here without really much contribution is going to be a bit of a stinker. 11 finally being dropped at the same time. So you can see again, this scrap that has happened out towards the east side of the map has nothing to do with the site itself, but the side of Cloud9 constantly want to keep them at bay, keep them asking questions around exactly how much do we have left to push the site here. The answer in this round in a 2 versus 3 is not a lot.
Cloud9 just dropping themselves back to site now, looking to haul up and just turtle this one out for the next minute. That's going to be the attempt. They've got 2 men inside of Sunrise, 1 inside of Blue Bar. Yeti looking to use, he's actually just dropped back into office, which was a smart move because it keeps him out of that line of sight. So Yeti able to push forward on the knock here, won't be picked up by any information utility. Just conscious that there could be somebody in behind that bar. There isn't. I think one's just relocated upstairs actually, which could be a good shout. Replica with a kill onto Shayol does give him access into the site, will clear out the Banshee. He's going to get challenged a little bit. I go quiet there because I was just questioning his movement. We all know there's going to be a rotate from Blue Bar to Sunrise, and he's just exposed himself to it without actually taking aim across in that direction, and a little bit of a slip up from Replica at the end there. I'm not saying it's an easy win, he's 1v2, but I tell you what, if he gets that fight and the other man's upstairs, you start thinking this is a possibility.
I think both teams just forgetting that top floor actually exists on this map. Now it's a ground floor only, it's where we can play. Of course, that will be forced to change as we go to hookah and billiards in round number 5. But again, it was the same thing we've seen time and time again, where you start with the site, when it's kitchen, for example, it's up towards the northeast. They start from the west, they push across, in they go. When we're attacking Blue Bar and Sunrise, they all start out from the east, they push in through and try and get to the west. It has been the same thing where Cloud9 had then met them with a bit of resistance on that side of the map, look to cherry pick the low-hanging fruit, get 1 or 2 kills on side, remove that crucial utility, and just leave the actual attack itself a little bit hampered because they don't have the full setup from the team that they need. So a little bit, I don't know, unsure from T1 again, and we keep on banging on about it because it's such a big deal. as to why there isn't that adaptation to go, okay, they're shutting us down in the early round, let's move and try and do something a little bit different. Here, at least, for Cloud9, it is going to be something different up on the top floor. I love this setup, by the way. It's like sticking your bulletproof camera in jail. You chuck it inside the wall, you create some indents against the reinforcement, it's inside nested, quite safe, you can't spray it from the side as easily. You stick a laser gate on it so you can't just blow it up with 11's impacts, for example. Just good protection and utility. Look after your cams, kids.
I mean, that's it. It's really showing, you know, above all else, Des, the importance that is placed upon that information, upon that camera and the feedback that it can give us to that push coming in through Aquarium. So it's certainly fascinating to see teams dedicating quite so much resource to it, but it just shows how important it is. Now, going to have an immediate push towards the building from T1. No messing about here. Replica straight onto the DJ booth, but they will be caught out for that eagerness to push forward. Envy Taylor getting a kill onto Neilio. So a great start for Cloud9 once again. They're looking to come away from this at least 3-0, I would suggest, on the half. Going into the attack, I'm sure then they'll be confident that they can turn out a win, but there's certainly going to be a bit of an obstacle in the way in the side of this T1 side, because they're having a good game so far.
Yeah, the frag's being removed as well is a pretty big deal. Doesn't really feel like it. Well, they've got an impact. They've got the impacts of the Zofia. They've got these shock drones coming out of Crazy Boy, sure. But think about mute jammers here, for example. They'll be the headache for them unless they can clear them out, because you've also got to deal with the Wamai. So that lost utility, probably going to sting as much as it does Envy getting a 2k in the round. Very low on HP himself. But again, putting a massive dent in their side, and now the Twitch is gone. More headaches for T1.
Certainly is. Looking from the rooftop with Yeti there, just trying to get anything started that he can, but hit on the reverse angle by Harper, and it leaves us now 2v5. 11 looking to make a challenge. He's actually being pressured from outside of theatre through one of those punch holes. Harper finds Replica, meanwhile. 11 doing everything he can, but it's very little here. It's holding the tide back with a bucket, effectively, as he gets 1 kill out of the 5 that he's going to need. He's got time on his side. He's going to take his reload. He's got an LMG on his side. So, you know, there's a couple of things that at least are positives for him there. He's not likely to get caught out in a reload animation or anything, because he does have the LMG, so that's going to give him an opportunity to fight more defenders before needing to take himself out of the ability with the animation for the period of time. He's creeping towards Cool Vibes stairs. I'm not sure they're aware of his presence. They don't know where he's coming from. The problem here is that's the problem. The problem is a proximity alarm and an element, which is going to make it extremely difficult. They should know exactly where he is. There comes the drop. It's great anticipation from 11 that might be the case, but I think he's going to find himself challenged very, very soon. Now, he turns around, does pay attention and gets the kill, but as I was saying, the problem is that they know exactly where he is now, so you can get the first kill or two in a 1v4, but all it does is sharpen the senses of the ones that are left.
I was going to say, he's got all his utility left on side. You could have burnt those impacts potentially into the floor above you and just hope to catch someone standing above. Like, you don't know, but it's the hopeful possibility. Whereas here he's kind of smashing his way through the door, not quite with a sledgehammer, but close enough. As Cloud9 know exactly where his planned attempt is going to come through here. Swinging now onto the balcony. You got Static holding up nice and close, and it's an easy tap and spray down onto the low health 11. Cloud9 taking the round, and again, another one of those. Cloud9 being disruptive, getting out there and being a bit of a nuisance, paying off for them big time.
Yeah, it's been a good start for Cloud9, I think, overall. It's been a solid start for both sides. They're both competitive here. You know, you're looking and, you know, I'd be doing the same thing. I think, it makes me wonder how hard SI hit Cloud9. You know, they really did struggle there. They didn't show us necessarily the same performances that I have done previously, and it just really makes me wonder if it's sort of rocked them.
It did feel like it. I know some of the players were a little bit homesick, but they didn't exactly do terribly there. You know, again, best entry team, plus 29, despite losing the way they did. So there were positives to take away, but clearly some that haven't quite carried on back with them back home into APAC North. But we'll see, of course, if that can change for Stage 3. And interestingly, I was having a conversation with Leon Gids yesterday from Rogue, who, you know, I'd say are going through the equivalent journey of Cloud9 right now. A relatively decent Stage 1. It wasn't the best, but it was far from the worst. And then in Stage 2, completely tanked it and are doing awful. And he said to me, you know, right now, we're focused on maintaining mental. Like, forget about the results. We know it's a rough season. We care far more about Stage 3. And he goes, honestly, I'll be really impressed at ourselves if we manage to throw away Stage 3 like we have Stage 2. That's just like, it's not even registering in his head right now as a possibility, which is a good thing to see. And I hope Cloud9 at least are feeling the same. We are back into the action, though. Round number 6, last one of the half for Cloud9 on the defense. Their aggression has definitely ravaged T1 throughout this first half. And for T1, when they're on the defensive side, no doubt will be thinking about doing similar sort sort of things, keeping Cloud9 guessing and uncomfortable is a surefire way, as several teams have now shown, to rock them. You know, test the faith in a way, test that confidence, and potentially take away a much-needed win for themselves. Envitailor
looking to just aggress onto that blue bar window there. He's had himself a couple of opening kills so far in the matchup, and will be keen to get more, I'm sure. It's been putting his team on the front foot, and generally speaking, if he hasn't picked up the opener, then it has gone to the side of T1. So Envitailor still aggressive inside of office. Takes a little pot shot out of the barricade there and nearly gets extremely lucky as a man steps across it. But Crazy Boy, his timing was just even luckier as he managed to dance and dodge in between those bullets that rained out through the wooden barricade, and that just leaves him alive to fight another day. He's going to try to push in and disrupt and dislodge Envitailor, I'm sure. The thing that T1 need to do here, Des, they need to get control over main lobby. They need to shut down that area because all the pressure at the minute is coming in from the office side. They're now starting to just probe a little bit at that Sunrise side. But if you want to get into office and apply pressure in towards Blue Bar, you got to keep control of main lobby, because we saw those shotgun holes being opened up against along the courtyard wall. That's to allow Envitailor to step into main lobby and to contest into Blue Bar if needs be.
You can see how there are 4 members of T1 again pushing out towards the west.
Upstairs!
Finally, someone is upstairs. Harper holding up there by himself right now, maybe being challenged, and here it comes. Fight not yet lost, at least for the Sledge, I believe it is. Neilyo down to about 75. Harper only slightly worse off. Spray through the bar, isn't quite going to connect, and round comes Neilyo. Does find the kill, and finally, Ace, we've got a Sledge on the top floor. Static stepping up to contest as more members of T1 now realise reinforcements are needed and look to start moving another couple up there as well. Crazy Boy into another kill. Neilyo smashing this wall open, knows the Goyo is there, but Static finds the double. That's the damage that you're looking for, and for T1, despite better movements in this round, have been shut down on that top floor.
Static's done a great job there. Not only has he kept that vertical superiority, he's also kept them ahead in terms of manpower as well. 3 versus 2, T1 on the back foot once again, coming in for a late push here, but it's more dangerous this time because Cloud9, they've got one on the flank, Des. Envitailor, keep an eye on him. He's been in security this whole time. He hasn't been affected. Crazy Boy comes in with a big kill onto Oni-chan. 2 versus 2, squared away, leveled up, but Envitailor has an opportunity to go massive inside of this round. Now Static steps up. That's for Envitailor. Just snatches it away from his fingertips there. So close to an ace for Static.
And I know we're speaking about team confidence, but I want to talk about individual confidence for a moment, because when you look at Cloud9, the weak link that most will probably point to right now would be Static. I know that Nova's currently not playing, but again, prolific stage 1. And when you've seen Envitailor and Charles, the kind of work they've done historically, also fantastic. Harper's had a good game so far. Not always the strongest entry that you see in APAC North, I think, but does his role. And so Static has been the one kind of catching a bit of flack lately. So for him to get a 4K in the round, I know it's only 1 round, but he'll be remembering that one for a couple of days past this as well, and thinking, man, yeah, I know I can do this kind of stuff. The 3K on the top floor, the spray down on sight, that was basically an ace until evil Captain Envy stepped in and took it away from me at the last second. So a good builder there, no doubt. Now that we get to switch sides, Cloud9 4-2 on their defense. Now they move on to the attack. And the first pick we're seeing coming out, well, when all else fails, you can always lean back on a good old Monty plant. Hey, Ace.
Always can bring along that big shieldy boy, and we'll see what Oni-chan can do with him. Now heading towards Hooker and Billiards, I'm thinking, where's the opportunity? Where are we going to see that Monty pushing from? And to be honest, there's 2 options. You could, of course, get him inside of Aquarium. He could support the push from there. I would say less necessary than maybe if you were looking at a Hooker deck push. I think getting yourself inside a Hooker deck, the diffuser, is a little bit more difficult to get down. When you come in from Aquarium and you're looking to plant behind the bomb near Billiards table, you've just got a little bit more natural protection. You can get it down there in the default spot. The smoke canisters don't clip through the bar anymore, so it's just a little bit easier to not have that same sort of cover. Whereas when you're getting yourself inside of Hooker for a plant, the Monty, he can really support that because you can be challenged from single door, you can be challenged from behind bar. It's a tough area to get the diffuser down in.
I mean, the fact that we start on the top floor means we will see more vertical play than perhaps prior. And of course, alongside the Monty, you're also talking about the Zero here too, something that Cloud9 have really popularised. And I know in NAL there was some conversations about this. I know Skies on his stream especially was having a conversation about, you know, why would you ever look to bring a Zero on the majority of maps, admittedly, when, say, for example, a Nomad could be available? Well, she's not available here, so for Cloud9, I think that plays perfectly into their setup. They love playing with this. We saw them use it a lot at SI, alongside things like the Finker that we saw back in stage 1. That very quickly fell away, and the Zero now has kind of become their go-to staple flex pick. 11 being the first one to get picked off by Envy Taylor. That's the man that you want to be shutting down in these games. The second coming in for Harper as that Buck finds a kill onto Crazy Boy. And with those two silenced, the two would-be roamers, I guess. Maybe you're also looking towards the Malusi and the Aruni to be getting off site here too. Cloud9 should start building up that pressure. One more connect, so 5 versus 2. Surely, Ace, this is the kind of round that you don't lose.
Great start from Cloud9 here. As I said at the beginning of the game, one of the big concerns for them, one of the big problems has been that switch of sides and losing momentum when they've come out and had a strong start. This time, it doesn't look to be the case. Could this be us starting to return towards some sort of status quo here where Cloud9 are a force to be reckoned with? They've come in, Static gets another one onto Yeti. It leaves Replica all alone inside a shot site. Flawless round, completely shut down by Cloud9. 5-2 on the scoreboard, and I tell you what, I wouldn't put money on this not being over in the next 2 rounds.
What I found really interesting was the fact that they had the Monty, which normally is your go-to control operator. It's not like a Monty is designed to be, I walk forwards, you shoot around my shield, and we kill people like some impenetrable fortress of death. Doesn't quite work that way. It's more about how it makes other players panic, and they constantly have to be aware of what is going on with the Monty, whereas there, that round was basically over before it got started. 60 seconds in, 3 were dead. Monty was barely even in the building in the first place. So for Cloud9, more early aggression, keeping T1 on their toes. And T1, as in the first half, struggling to adapt and keep up in the majority of the rounds.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise to see T1 coming in with a tactical timeout here. They have just been bullied around for the last 4 rounds that Cloud9 have taken one after another. I think it's about the right time, you know, allow that switch to happen, get yourself onto the opposite side, see if things are different. As it is, things are worse. Cloud9 have come in and they've just started to snowball there and get a flawless round, and you start thinking, wow, we weren't even really competitive inside of that one at all. It wasn't like it was, you know, all the way up to 3 minutes and it was a last second kill or anything. That was just Cloud9 dominance. So T1 just looking to put a little speed bump in the road to slow things down a little bit, but honestly, if Cloud9 keep playing like this, they're going to really struggle. Cloud9 have turned up and are playing reasonably well. T1 have not turned up really.
Certainly not so far. Although the one thing I'm always evasive of, is the nice way to put it, I think, with Cloud9, is getting excited about them being ahead. Think about prior games this season. The 6-0 they had against Fav. Like, sure, they can't possibly lose now. The 6-0 the first half of Consulate. One more round, it's theirs, it's done. They lose 8-6. They have a habit when things start going against them, it seems, of getting inside their own heads and things just completely fall by the wayside. Although here, given the confidence they've shown in rounds, being willing to get out there, take early gunfights and shut T1 down, that I think is something that is going to be hard to shake, even if T1 win a single round here. Kitchen going to be where we head to for round number 8. In terms of the setup, that mirror being present for T1 as it was for the side of Cloud9 earlier on.
So we've got a bit of presence upstairs this time around, which is funny from T1, really. I mean, they're obviously recognising the importance of that verticality, but it's not something that they chose to manipulate and to use to their advantage when on the attack themselves. But they're obviously fully expecting that top floor attempt to come in from Cloud9, because we've got a deployable shield on the 90 corridor. We've got a setup inside of Theatre there to try and hold on and just prevent any access to Hall of Fame and VIP particularly. So those two defenders, Cloud9, they're going to have to clear them out. You can't go in and take control of VIP. You can't start opening that floor up before you've got those defenders out, because otherwise you're just going to get hit on the flank. So Harper, he's going to be moving up to the upstairs, no doubt, on the book. He needs to take probably Shyol along with him, possibly Static as a 3, get up there, clear it out, get control, and then start with the verticality.
Absolutely, and the gridlock is one that I'm quite excited about as well. We don't really see gridlock all that much, even when a Nomad is banned, and generally the attitude has always been, okay, well, generally the Nomad is all-purpose. You can use it for windows, you can use it for stairways, however you choose. Whereas something like the gridlock, much more internal as a pick. You'll often see it on stairways or on key rotations that you simply do not want the defenders to be utilising. And I think because she's quite slow, a lot of teams don't really like making use of her. But here, at least for Cloud9, a bit of difference coming out. Being paired up with the Zero means that they do have great watch potential across the map. One thing to note, actually, early on, is that Envy hasn't used a single one of those sound cams just yet. All 4 still in the back pocket.
Neilio behind the bar in Billiards, just looking to make a challenge. He knows that Harper's pushing and will find a kill. What an absolute beauty on the headshot there. Just catching Harper as he tries to dip himself down to a crouch position, but it won't be enough to keep him alive. And that's actually a really big opening kill there, Des, because that's the butt gone, and it starts to remove some of that ability that Cloud9 have got to open up the floor. Shyol did not have the soft breach devices on Zofia, so it was limited to the 2 explosive grenades. Xiao's been taken out, so they don't even have them now. So basically, the vertical option is gone. T1 can just completely focus on site here.
Where have we seen that before, I wonder? Just like back in the first half, the lack of vertical play stung teams. And for Cloud9, now it's about trying to build that up with what little resource they have left. And unfortunately, it's not the right resource that you need to be clearing out verticals. Potentially 4 versus 2 with only the Iana and the Gridlock remaining. In comes Oni-chan, finds one, his first of the whole fixture so far. Sees one more coming in, potentially a second as he gets the down. But the mirror, hanging behind the mirror window, must know about this one, but they can't quite catch each other. Shotgun was out, but Neilio finds the kill from Bathroom. T1 find that round, and you always ask the question, is this when we start to see the cracks in the armor for Cloud9?
Oh, the pain for Oni-chan there as the shots came into the mirror and you thought that he'd hit them, but the glass was still in place. Oh, so close for him. A good defence from T1. A couple of important kills up on the top floor. That much is important to note. They got a little bit of luck as well. They straight away got the Zofia, so they got the only 2 options to open up those soft surfaces. The breaching charges were gone, the skeleton key was gone, and it completely forced Cloud9 then into a horizontal push. And T1, they were ready for that. So well played from them. You know, all credit where it is due. Cloud9, I'm sure, won't make the same mistakes twice. They'll probably go in a little bit more cautiously towards that top floor. It was pretty aggressive. Harper, I mean, he got himself into a 50-50 gunfight and it was well won by Neilio. But Cloud9 on a top 4 clearance, they're not going to want to give away lives. The problem was that there was nobody there to impact on that death. They were very much sort of solo pushing on that top floor. So one got taken out, the next got taken out, and there was just never an opportunity for them to get the trade.
It's unfortunate, but that is how you know the majority of this map has played out. I keep on talking about the swing or be swung mentality of this map at points, and it seems to be in, ironically, full swing between both of the 2 teams. Let's see how this downstairs hole comes out, though. It's an interesting one with the mirror setting up, although it isn't the site they're playing on. Sometimes you'll see this when defending Kitchen, actually, where you won't have the mirror actually inside of Kitchen itself. You'll see it upstairs in Theatre, overlooking Penthouse. The idea being that you stop the attackers getting control of Penthouse Theatre. They can't open up the verticals. Life becomes a lot more difficult. Not so much so when neither team really cares about the verticals, it feels. This one's a much more conventional setup, I guess, where you've got the mirror playing in between 2 sites here, playing on the split wall, as you might want to call it. And in comes Oni-chan. Suddenly it's like it's a rock and a hard place almost between these 2, where the mirror can see what's coming, the Monty knows that she's behind the mirror, but neither can really do anything to one another.
Neilio just dipping a little bit back from that black mirror there. Harper's going to find the kill onto 11 to start things off for Cloud9. Neilio still proving a little bit of a nuisance there, just making the challenge onto the Book of Harper, but won't be successful. The Monty almost losing his life there. Oni-chan needs to be careful, getting aggressive, pushing in, and finds himself just stunned out and shield broken.
Good idea.
That's the move. Take out the mirror, stop the knowledge for Neilio, and the kill comes in almost immediately afterwards from Static. Almost at the halfway point, 5 versus 3. Cloud9 looking much better on this attack than they did last time around.
Yeah, I think good clearance there. Team clearance is the most important part. They realise the mirror's there. They pinch her out so she can't run from the Monty. You have the Thatcher pressuring for a service entrance, and you then have the flank coming from behind to make sure he's well and truly cornered. So maybe a little bit of team play you'd be looking for from Team 1 there, not quite in place. But for Cloud9, they've got make it 3 kills now, potentially a repeat of round number 7 when they got themselves to Flawless. No, Yeti going to shut that one down. Cast the curse, speaks it into existence, but he's got all the work to do by himself. And with 1 minute and 15 still to play, a Monty on the board, there should be 0% chance that he wins the round. Indeed, he will not. Static taking the closing kill, and let's say Fnatic, Cloud9, sorry, moving up to match point.
Cloud9 looking much better here. The question now comes, of course, can they close this out? The last thing they want to do is give T1 an opportunity to get a round or 2 and just start to claw their way back into things. Cloud9 haven't been the greatest at sealing the fate of other teams as of late. They've not been able to get themselves over the line from that match point. But the way things are going today, I would expect them to do it in the next round or 2. They've been very, very efficient on the attacks overall. We're going to be going to Hooker this time around. It was last played back in round 7 where Cloud9 were successful on their attack there. So going to be a lot of confidence. There was kills, if I remember, coming in from everywhere. Yeti even picking one up from the rooftop. So Cloud9, I'd say more of the same here. Just get themselves in. They surrounded site last time. There was just pressure everywhere. There was pressure from rooftop, pressure from aquarium. There was just pressure from absolutely every angle possible.
It was, I think, the safest round we've seen, and probably the most, again, coordinated team play round. I called it out at the time and said, you know, the fact that they've pincered this mirror together is really good. It's not so much about taking the solo gunfights all around the map and seeing if that transpires into you having a numbers advantage. It was just from the off, let's play as a group. Let's not get ourselves split up here, and it was good stuff. No doubt a repeated attempt coming in here with the Monty on side once more. And the pairing up with the Decabi, I think, just makes it even more annoying. If you are off on the roam by yourself and you get phone called and a Monty spots you, you get droned, you're screwed. Your likelihood of not getting away for free, it stops them being caught on the flank. So surprisingly, despite the aggressive defensive game coming out of Cloud9, a much slower and more composed one on the attack, I'd say.
11 on the Oryx, always an interesting roamer to watch, of course, with that increased mobility, not only through soft surfaces, but up and down hatches as well. Just has the opportunity to pop up in unexpected places in and around the map if he's not closed down. Cloud9 seem to be very careful about that. Don't want to get themselves caught on the flank. Not bringing the gridlock this time either. The opening kill will go to Yeti. And that's going to be the Doc picking up Static. Taking the Dokkaebi down, so that's going to be the loss of those phone calls as well. Envy Taylor going by the wayside, and T1 fighting their way into this one quite nicely. It seems to have been a little bit of a recurring theme here that we get these multiple kills coming in to start things off. And
again,
the sort of rounds landslide in one direction, but this time Harper able to get one, bringing it a little bit closer, just misses the head of the man on Cool Vibes there. A minute in, and we've already got 3 dead.
It's the same vibe once again, right? Monty pushes in from kitchen service. There's a player isolated inside a kitchen, and he gets shot from the window or from someone pushing in from Sunrise door. It's just, again, really good team play, and T1 maybe not being respectful of the fact that Cloud9 have done it once. They're likely going to try and make it happen again. All that said, though, they are into that 3 versus 4, so that 1 kill is something, but not necessarily the strongest you're looking for, given you've lost 2 of your own elsewhere around the map. So in the 3 versus 4, they've got a minute and a half to play with. One thing I'll give to both teams, this has not been a slow wait until the final 30 seconds and it's still 5 versus 5. Consistently, these rounds seem to be ending well before the 30 seconds remaining mark.
Leveled up there as Harper manages to find a nice kill through the soft wall 1-11. Maybe a bit of information, a yellow ping just giving him that position. But he's going to get back onto the drones, try and find a few more, see if he can help his teammates out. And this has been a good resilient fight from Cloud9 here. They've got themselves back into things. They lost those 2 early kills and now have squared things away at 3-3. Shiol up on that rooftop, just looking to make a nuisance of himself. You can get some really nasty angles down into sight, which will prevent rotation, particularly of the defenders, and may well lock them in place. Now, Cloud9 just stalling out a little bit here, just being forced to sit in their positions. They've effectively only got 2 men attacking the site here, with Shiol still up on the rooftop. Oni-chan going to be forced away. Shiol has now dropped. That's a point to the credit for Cloud9. 30 seconds left to go. They need to get moving.
The Neo C4's the one big thing I was watching out for. In fact, it's just been thrown out and did nothing. I was going to say that was their chance to go for the deny, but Harper, walking his way up the corridor here, finds out onto a 3rd in the round, almost gets to 4th, but Crazy Boy a little bit too quick. Now in the 1 versus 2, it's Crazy Boy against the Monty and Shiol. The last 2 you really want to be facing off against, but 10 seconds to play. If he finds one, it could be enough. It's not gonna be. Oni-chan collecting the kill, and Cloud9 with a much-needed win.
Uncomfortable there at the end, wasn't it, for the Jaeger? He was just Monty on one side and Shiol on the other. Where do you go? He was between a rock and a hard place. It was a nice crossfire, and it was surely a matter of time. There was no way that he was going to duck, dive, and weave between those bullets for the next 10 seconds. So Cloud9, they close it out immediately as soon as they get that match point opportunity. It's a good performance.